Hi friends, and welcome to the cutting instructions video for the range quilt. Today I'm going to show you how to ensure that your template is the correct size, how to use your paper template with your acrylic ruler to make cutting your wedges easier and faster, and how to properly work with pattern fabrics. First, you'll need to print out your wedge template that is included in the range pattern. Make sure to check your computer settings and that you print at 100%. There's also a 1-inch square guide in the corner to verify the right size. You can also measure the long flat side to make sure it is 8.5 inches long. There are 8 different fabrics used in the range quilt. I have them divided up by letters A through H. Be mindful of using a patterned fabric or a solid that has a right and wrong side. The wedge in the pattern goes in 2 different directions. So you will need to double check when cutting so that you not have a pattern fabric wedge facing the wrong way. Refer to the directional cutting chart next to each letter when using a patterned fabric for assistance. We're going to begin with an example using solid fabric and the fabric A section. In step 1 for fabric A, you're going to cut 2 8.5 by width of fabric strips of your fabric. So cut them into 2 pieces. In step 2, take your first section and we're going to cut our 8.5 inch by width of fabric strips into 4 8.5 by 9 inch rectangles. And I like to fold my fabric strips in half, make cutting a little faster. So I've got 2, make 1 more, cut. Again, 8.5 by 9 inches. Now you have 4 8.5 by 9 inch rectangles. Go ahead and stack these up together and set those to the side. Next, you're going to cut 8 3-inch by 8.5 inch rectangles. You can double up your fabric to make it faster. You will go through, we've got 2, 4, 6, and 8. We'll set these skinnier strips aside for the next step. You'll take for step 3, your 4 8.5 by 9 inch rectangles, and we're going to cut them in half using the wedge template to create 8 wedges. A trick I like to use with the wedge template is to tape it to my acrylic ruler. You want to choose one that is wide enough, and for this example, I am using a 5-inch wide ruler. You'll take your template and line up the angled edge using some clear tape or washi tape. Just tape along the top and the bottom. Again, making sure your cutting edge is where your angled edge is on your template. With your 8.5 by 9 inch rectangles stacked, I usually cut 4 at a time. You are going to line up your bottom edges. Oh, see, that's the 9-inch side, so you've got to flip these around. Line up your bottom edges to the bottom edges of your 8.5 by 9 inch rectangle. Line up the 8.5 inch part here, and just cutting along that edge there. And now you've got your 4 wedges facing this way and 4 wedges facing this way. Moving on to using patterned fabric or solid fabric that has a right and wrong side. The only precaution you need to take when working with a patterned fabric is on your step 3 of fabric A through H instructions. On step 3, it tells you to subcut your 8.5 by 9 inch rectangles in half using your wedge template to create your other wedges. Your wedges are going to be facing 2 different directions after we cut this down the middle. The problem with pattern fabric is if you have them all facing upwards, all of your wedges are going to face the same direction. So what we're going to need to do is alternate the direction of your fabric facing down, facing up, facing down, etc. all the way through your stack for each fabric to ensure that you're going to have wedges facing both directions for your pattern fabric. For an example, I'm going to work on the sections Fabric D and Fabric E, the 2 sections that deal with an odd number of wedges. These instructions are a little different from your other letters because you will actually have to cut out an extra rectangle. So when you would usually cut out 8 rectangles, you will cut out 9. So we're going to cut out 9 rectangles. Here's the 9th one. This is going to be cut separately. So in step 2 of Fabric D and Fabric E, we're going to cut 9 rectangles at 8.5 by 9 inches. Step 3, subcut 8 of your 8.5 by 9 inch rectangles in half. So we're going to take 8 of them, alternating direction, lay them out, get your template and your acrylic ruler, line up your edges, and cut. Now when we separate these, since they're alternating directions, we are going to have opposite directions on these. So cutting the 8 rectangles is going to give us 8 on each side. For fabrics D and fabrics E, we actually only need 7 on this side and we need 9 on this side. So after we split these up, 8 on each side, we can actually remove 1 from the right side to leave us 7. So let's divide these up. Make sure they all came out properly. Yep, they did. So yeah, just shows you how alternating the direction of your fabric makes sure your wedges come out in an even order. So now we've got 8 on each side. We're going to remove one of these. You can save this in your scrap pile. 7 on this side. Now, in order to make your 9th wedge for this side, following the directions, the directional template, you're going to take your 9th piece of fabric that you've got cut, 8.5 by 9 inches, and you want to make sure that your wedge is facing this direction when cutting. So that's the trick to this part. So if we laid this down like we have been, you'll notice the wedge is actually facing the opposite direction. So we're going to need to flip this over and cut this way because that actually matches up with this. See if I can do this left-handed. I'm going to cut this. Oh, almost got it. There's one little spot. Okay. So now you're going to have an extra one of these, so you can put that in your scrap pile too. You're going to have a 9th on this side and 7 here. And that is how you work with pattern fabrics or solids that have a right or wrong side.